Okay, let's get down to our number one then. Matt, shall we find out what your favourite Star Wars game is of all time? Okay, welcome to a long, long time ago. This week, we're going to delve into another area of the Star Wars franchise. We're going to be talking about video games throughout the years, specifically the top 5 video games of Star Wars. I'm joined, as always, by Martyn. Martyn, we all know you're a Star Wars superfan, and there are loads of Star Wars games on the market. How many do you think you've played?
I mean, obviously preparing for this, I looked at how many Star Wars games released, and I'd probably say I've played about 75% of the Star Wars games that have ever been released, going all the way back to the arcade games in the 80s,
Wow.
through to all the PC and Super Nintendo games of the 90s, and then obviously the more modern games. I haven't played so many 2014 onwards, really. I haven't played any of the Jedi Survivor games, but yeah, I've got quite a well-versed gaming history with Star Wars. So it's really, really good fun doing this.
Yeah. Well, although I'm a pretty avid gamer myself, and have been from a very young age, I can't say I've played all that many Star Wars games. And these days, with my young family, I don't really have time to play any games, despite having quite a few of them downloaded into my PlayStation library. So while I intend to chip in with my top 3 favourite Star Wars games, I'm only going to be able to manage top 3 of favourite Star Wars games, I think. So with that, Martyn and I agreed that we needed to find someone in the Star Wars collecting community that is also a huge Star Wars gamer. Someone who could compile a comprehensive top 5 list of Star Wars games with us. So let's welcome to the channel for the very first time, we have Matt from Matt's Collection. How you doing, Matt?
Hi, Matt. How you doing?
I'm great.
Good,
how you guys
good.
doing?
Good.
Yeah, really good. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
First off, can you tell us a little bit about your Star Wars gaming history, or your gaming history in general?
I would say my gaming history actually with Star Wars actually started back in the early 80s with the Atari Star Wars arcade game, and I actually have the arcade 1-up version over here.
Oh, yeah.
I probably spent about the combined gross domestic product of several small nations, 1 quarter at a time in that machine. And then, I mean, generally it's like, for the most part, if there's a game in a genre that I like, that's Star Wars, I've played it. Like, I mean, I bought a Super Nintendo when I first joined the Air Force as an airman, just so I could play these 3 games.
Oh, brilliant game.
So I go back a long way, and I mean, it's like, PC gaming. Ooh. Oh, there you go. Nice.
I was just going to put that one there. Look. So, yeah. I
Awesome.
also found that up in my loft. Yeah, it's one of mine.
Yeah. My Super Nintendo is in my son's room. It still works. So it's
nice.
They were tough games, weren't they? They were
so games. Hard. Yeah, because if you died, you had to start over again. It was brutal.
Nightmare.
Yeah. Well, that's. I was going to get to that at some point, but yeah, you're right. Absolutely.
But yeah, I've been playing, PC games through the 90s. Pretty much any Star Wars game that came out. The only ones I really haven't played are the massive multiplayer online, like the role playing, those types of games. I just don't play those games in general. So even if it's got Star Wars on it, as tempting as it would be, I've just never played them.
Well, that covers kind of my next question: is what genres do you like to play, and what do you tend to avoid?
I generally do. I do like role-playing games, like a single-player game with a good story. I like a good story, or an open world type thing is a lot of fun to explore. I like, like I said, a good story, and you'll see that in the theme of list of games that I pick up on here. That the ones that I play, generally tend to have like a good story to them.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I mean, but like I love a first person shooter. Sometimes it's just like kind of mindless, run and gun kind of stuff. I've done that as well. Even like in some games where they do have like a multiplayer component to it, I like the game. I may not play the multiplayer as much on some of them, but yeah, I'll play just like lots of different types of games. It's just generally it's just the MMOs I don't like.
Martyn, same question. Have you got any particular genres?
I'll play all Star Wars games. But well, back in the day, I would if it had Star Wars on the label, then I would pick it up and play it. Which there's some of them were questionable choices thinking back, but we'll get into that a bit later. But yeah, no, I'm not any. The ones that I didn't like are the first person shooters. I cannot stand video games that are in first person. It has to be third person, or I'm out. It doesn't matter if it's Star Wars or not. I cannot stand first person games. I much rather see the character when I'm playing. Unlike Matt, before when I was single, I used to play the MMORPGs quite a bit. So I played Galaxies and I played Knights of the Old Republic quite conclusively as well. I mean, I was one of those people that you hear that play Warcraft, and it's their life. I think I've spent a year on one of those games, but they're not something you can stick with for long term. Yeah, I mean, there's not really a genre of game that I don't like, but if I had to pick a favorite, it would be open world. Something that I think Star Wars gaming lacks quite comprehensively in the gaming world. I think it's been crying out since the first GTA games, and especially what you can do with Red Dead Redemption 2 these days. How they haven't till I think next year or maybe later this year, I think it is, to bring out their first open world game. That's something that I'm really looking forward to in the future. But yeah, what about you, Adam?
Yeah. Well, you'll see from my list, really. I like sort of the racing games and flight simulators type games. How would you describe those? I'm not really.
Yeah, flight sim.
Yeah,
It's not really a flight.
Yeah.
Is it a flight sim? Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't mind a first person shooter or third person, to be honest. But I just don't. I've never sort of specifically gone out for like a Star Wars game myself. No, I just pick them up as they come, really. So, do you have a worst Star Wars game on your list of all the games that you've played, Matt? What's probably the worst one you've played?
I would go with the Battlefront games done by EA.
Interesting.
Because I mean, the original, the LucasArts Star Wars Battlefront, Battlefront 2, I absolutely love those games. They were that was, you talk about it doesn't need a plot, but you just go in and fight and take the objectives. It's a lot of, there's some strategy involved with them.
Yeah.
EA's versions were very much a pay to win or even pay to compete kind of thing. Loot box nightmare stuff that I
much
really
a theme
don't like
of
in
it.
games. Yeah,
Any
game that's like a live service, I'm not a fan of, because you're paying a good amount of money for the game in general, and then you have to put more money. I mean, I'm not talking about buying. But when you have to buy power, buy stuff to give you an edge in the game. That I don't like those types of games at all. It should be I think a game like that, a level playing field for everyone.
Yeah.
You want to pay for cosmetics or something, fine. I don't care about that. But when you're paying for, you'll do really well with this weapon or this power up, but you have to pay for loot boxes and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't like those types of games. So that would be my worst.
It takes the enjoyment out of it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Having to pay and or compete against people that have paid, it just takes the enjoyment out of it, really.
I did play both of the newer Battlefront games, and I have to say the actual games themselves, the actual gameplay, I thought was fantastic. But as you say, you kind of felt a bit, well, dirty is the wrong word, but playing them because you felt like you
had to buy stuff to do well.
Yeah, to power up your character, or even play as. I mean, playing as Darth Vader, you had to pay. I mean, it's a Star Wars game; you have to pay to play the character. Probably everyone wanted to play. But the actual games themselves, I thought were fantastic, and I think.
Oh no, I love the graphics. The maps were awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, it played very well. It was just it's just that aspect of it that would put it.
Put a bad taste in your mouth. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Cool,
Yeah.
cool.
And any honourable mentions that didn't make the top 5?
Oh, I got about 25 of those. No, there's generally some good ones. Like I kind of liked. It was like when the Xbox had the Kinect, they had like they had a Star Wars game. It was kind of fun. There's a lot of goofy elements in it. Like the dancing thing was just dumb, but there was like a Jedi campaign in it that was a lot of fun. It had a decent story. And then there was another one where you could be like the Rancor, and your whole thing was to just go around, smash Tatooine, and eat people.
Oh, nice.
It was just kind of fun. Believe it or not, there's the Atari Star Wars arcade game on there. I would put as an honorable mention. I mean, because that really kind of started it all for me. But there was a second arcade game that came out like in the late 90s, early 2000s, where you play through all the games, and they had it at a movie theater when we lived in Colorado, and it was like I was dating my wife at the time, and it was like I couldn't play the game until after the movie because I could get through the entire game on one. Like I think it was like 75 cents for one credit. And I could get through the whole game.
Wow,
that was the Star Wars having
arcade, trilogy arcade. I think it was, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. That was a fun game. Few others. Squadrons was really good. And some others, but it's pretty much it. There's a lot of cool games, but those would definitely be honorable mentions.
Yeah, going back to that Kinect game, I went out and bought a Kinect just so that I could play that. Feel like it was kind of a waste of money an hour into it, but
it was like, oh my god, I have to work at this. I have to get up and jumping, and if you don't jump just right, it was a little clunky, but it was. I like the concept. It was kind of nice to do something different like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Martyn, any honourable mentions from your part?
I'll do worst game first, if you like.
My
least favorite game. Everyone, I think, who gets asked this question tends to say Masters of Terrascazi. At least in my experience, they do. But I actually didn't think it was that bad. So for my choice, and I actually went out and bought this game on the PlayStation 2. It was Super Bombad Racing, and I mean it was awful. I mean, I used to play it for 10 minutes, and I spent £25 on it or something. I played it for 10 minutes and never put it back in the system again. It was awful, absolutely awful. It's basically trying to be a Super Mario Kart clone type game.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's not even worth talking about. It was that bad. So that would be my least favorite game.
Wasn't it like the little ships, but it was like bobbleheads driving it or whatever?
Right. Yeah, it was.
Right.
Yeah, it was one of those. I had a day off work and I'd just been paid sort of situations, and I was bored. So yeah, I do regret buying that. Just like Matt, I do have a fair few honourable mentions. I do apologise. Obviously, the aforementioned Star Wars Galaxies and the Old Republic MMORPG games. I mean, even if you don't like those sort of games, just taking Galaxies, for example, being able to wander around Tatooine and visit all of those places for the first time in an open world, going to Jabba's palace, going to Obi-Wan's hut, going into Mos Eisley. In the early 2000s, there was nothing quite like that as a Star Wars fan, so that gets a massive honourable mention. Empire at War, which is a strategy game I absolutely loved when it first came out, whereas you could play as the Rebel Alliance or the Empire, and in the expansion packs you could play as the sort of, I think it was bounty hunters or the Hutt Syndicate or something like that. That was great. You basically would command fleets of Star Destroyers and X-Wings and Rebel ships. Also, just like Matt, my game at the arcade in the 80s, and it's the worst of the three, was the Return of the Jedi Atari game. It's literally one of the most clunky games to control in the history of gaming. But just like Matt, I must have probably spent money after money after money after money on that game.
Yeah.
Just trying to get to the Star Destroyer levels a bit further on in the game, and it was so difficult you wouldn't very often get there. Lego Star Wars 1, the first Lego Star Wars games, which was based on episode 1 to 3, it was, in my mind, it was the first Star Wars game, even though it was Lego, that you could deflect laser bolts from people firing at you. And for me, that was always been one of my favorite things that the Jedi could do, and be able to do this for the first time in a computer game was absolutely incredible. So that gets an honourable mention. Episode 1 Racer, loved that game, especially the pod race level where you're on Mos Espa, or the Boon to Eve Classic, I should say. They literally got the track dead on, exactly like they did in the movie, which I thought was fantastic. And the last one I'll mention is TIE Fighter from I think it was 94. I want to say maybe 93. It was the sequel to X-Wing. It was just a phenomenal flight sim game, 3D flight sim, but still playable now, still with a storyline that's absolutely fantastic. And I would certainly hope that one day they re-release that, more updated. So they're my honorable mentions.
Nice.
Nice.
Right, let's get into the top 5 then. Matt, we should start with you then. What do you have for number 5 and why?
My number 5 is Dark Forces 2 Jedi Knight. That entire series of games with Dark Forces 2, Jedi Outcast, Jedi Academy. I love those games. I played them multiple. I mean, I just rebought the first one, the remastered. But I picked Jedi Knight because that was the first game you as a player could use the Force. And so there was a lot of neat stuff like Force speed, you can heal yourself with the Force and all that. So, but it had a multiplayer. It was also had a multiplayer component. It was kind of, not a lot of people used it. And it could get kind of glitchy. But again, it was the story, the fact you could, you get to be a Force, and also that there were 2 endings to the game depending on what you chose, because you could be a Jedi, or you could turn to this, you could be the Sith. And so it had 2 very different endings to it, and it was that was a lot of fun.
That's a great game. I have great memories of that game. The Force lightning effect in that game was fantastic, and the Force jump was something I'd never ever be able to do in a game before that game. It was absolutely incredible. Great choice, number 5.
Good, Martyn.
Yeah. Just before I start, there are some classics in here, but also there's a few that I put in, or maybe a couple that aren't perhaps the most technically brilliant games in the world, but nostalgia-wise, they mean a lot to me. So, and this one's probably one of those. This one, number 5, is Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, game that came out on the PlayStation 2 and Xbox. I don't think
we've spoken about this one before, haven't we? On the channel.
I basically ruined Revenge of the Sith because the game came out about a month before the film, and they put cutscenes between each level. And I promised myself I'd only play one more level, and to the point where I'd got to the Mace Windu against Palpatine fight, and I thought, I basically went into Revenge of the Sith to watch it for the first time. I pretty much knew all of the major beats. But saying that, the game was absolutely fantastic. I mean, the actual game itself for the movie was fantastic, and like Matt said, in this game it gives you an alternate ending where Anakin actually defeats Obi-Wan, and he can actually kill Palpatine at the end of the game, and he becomes the Sith Lord, which I thought was a really nice touch. It had a fantastic 2-player mode where you could fight. Remember back in the days where you could have co-op in games, or you'd face each other without having to go online. It was great because the duels that you could have with that 1-against-1 mode were absolutely fantastic, and they actually came across, if you were quite skilled at the game, like prequel level lightsaber fights. You could not act out, but actually have a fight with somebody, and actually it would be movie quality. It was absolutely fantastic. So nostalgia wise, I think more than anything, that would be my number 5 game. I played it to death. Must have, it was a really tough time around that sort of era, because there was a Star Wars game every month, it seemed, and I think that probably stands head and shoulders amongst a lot of them. So yeah, Revenge of the Sith, number 5.
Nice. Matt, number 4 for you?
Number 4, I kind of bounced around on this one a bit. I guess I should throw a couple more honorable mentions in. Was, I thought about maybe it would be like Republic Commando. I love that game, but or the Force Unleashed, mainly because of the physics in it. But I ended up going with Jedi Survivor. Because a lot of those elements are in this game for those two. Plus, it's very close to being a big open world. And again, like I said, I like a good story. The story from Fallen Order and Survivor together are really good. They've left it wide open to do a third game in there. I think they're developing it now. And it's got a lot of neat physics in it. Like, you have to run Respawn's really good about having like wall running and like jumps and climbing and stuff. And it definitely pays for you to explore the environment. And they have huge maps. You can go to like 5 or 6 different worlds, and they're all really big. And there's a lot of things to look around. And as you gain an ability, it's good to go back because you can open up new areas with new abilities. So it's a lot of fun. It's got a lot of replayability in it. I mean, for a game that's really got like kind of a linear story to it, but it's definitely got some areas where you can branch out and learn some stuff. So it's a fun game.
Yeah, I haven't actually played either of those games, but I have sat on YouTube and watched 3 hours worth of the cutscenes on each of them. And you're right, the story is fantastic. It's just that I find it these days, if I play a game, it has to be 1, maybe 2 games a year, and I have to be quite selective because I just don't have as much free time as I'd like to play. So they're definitely something that I'll try and play in the future, but everybody I've have heard has played those games says they're absolutely fantastic. So
I love choice.
Them.
Yeah. Okay. Martyn, number 4.
Number 4. Now I mentioned TIE Fighter earlier, and my number 4. While this may not be the best of the trilogy of those games, it's my favourite, and it was X-Wing Alliance, which is the 3rd in that series of games. Again, it's the same sort of game. It's a flight sim 3D game, but you could definitely see by the time they'd made this game, they knew what they were doing from the first 2. They'd really perfected it. I really enjoyed the story for this. It actually had a really good story about a family that were caught up in the rebellion against the Empire, and it basically told the story through from the end of Empire Strikes Back all the way to the attack on the Death Star and Return of the Jedi. And it was the first game that I think anyway, in 3D that you were able to do the attack on the Death Star and fly through the core to take out the main reactor, which in my memory was probably the hardest level of Star Wars I've ever played in my life.
And you're flying the Falcon.
Yeah, yes. And also my favourite part of Return of the Jedi is the space battle above Endor, and you got to kind of reenact that in the game. So you got to fly up against Star Destroyers, and just as a sort of a late teen, being able to do that, and see the scale of a Star Destroyer for the first time as you're controlling the ship flying. Now the graphics look pretty bad, but at the time it was absolutely fantastic. And as I say, I think they've re-released it recently on Steam, so it's definitely one I'm going to pick up again and play all the way through again, because I must have played it 3 or 4 times all the way through back in the 90s. So yeah, I would highly recommend it if you don't mind a bit of dated technology. But number 4, X-Wing Alliance, I absolutely adored that game. It was great. Did you ever play that one, Matt?
Yeah.
I did. What did you think?
We'll talk about it in a little while.
Okay.
That's the first one that we both have it on our list. And
okay.
It is well deserved.
Yes, excellent. So number 3 then, Matt. Should we go into that?
3, I think, just they have a vast amount of titles and I felt like it needed to be on this genre needed to be on the list. And I picked the latest one, but I picked Lego Star Wars: The Complete Saga.
Mm.
These games,
Okay.
I don't know if you guys, the Lego games are just hilariously fun.
Yeah.
And like I love the first ones where like the characters don't speak in the cutscenes; they just kind of make little grunts and whatnot,
Yeah.
and it was a lot of fun. And this one, it's as far as it's updated, the technology, for the graphics and everything are top notch.
Mm.
It's just the amount of stuff that you can do in the game, and they're just fun.
Yeah.
And again, it's like almost open world. So
yeah, Steph played. As I said, I played the first Lego Star Wars. Steph, my wife, she basically, and if there's a Lego game comes out, she buys it. I mean, she's played all the Lord of the Rings, all of them.
that's a
that
good
have
one
come
too.
out. Harry Potter, she's bought all of those. So she loves those games, and I actually quite enjoy sitting just watching her play them because they're quite fun to watch them play. Because there's little jokes, isn't there?
There's all these little Easter eggs in these games, and they're hilarious. So it's they're a lot of fun to play, and like different characters do different things and stuff. So it's a lot of fun.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well,
do you want to do number 3?
With that, then I'll jump in for my number 3 because it's the exact same game. I have great memories of that game with because it's multiplayer as well, isn't it? So I'm sitting there.
Played it multiplayer.
You can work together with.
Oh, you get two people at the same time. Yeah, we've done that with
in
my
the same
kids.
room. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. And it's good. It's just good fun. I've got good memories of playing that with my mates and trying to 100% the game, get all the bricks and everything.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, those things you had to find the bit like the
mini
canisters.
Oh, the mini kits. That's it. Oh, you'd end up having to go online to look at the guides because you just couldn't find where they were.
But they're playable games, aren't they? They're not difficult. You can just sort of switch off and just crack on with it, can't you? And have a bit of fun. So yeah.
Well, that's what games are supposed to be, I mean,
yeah. But some of them, this one, for instance, isn't on my. I could have had a top 4, but it's so hard. The Super Return of the Jedi. I just remember it being so difficult that I can't have got past Jabba's palace. So yeah,
it's pretty impressive. I didn't get past the level before that. So number 3 for me is 2005's Battlefront 2. This game was, obviously we had Battlefront come out, and that was a great game. It was, I don't think I'd ever seen, or a lot of my friends and I hadn't seen anything quite like Battlefront. But Battlefront 2 took Battlefront and improved upon every aspect. You could play as Jedi. The maps were bigger. There was 3 times the amount of maps you could run, and this time you could only walk in the first Battlefront game. And you could play co-op, obviously, as well. And I just have such great memories of running through Utapau as Obi-Wan with the Battle of the Heroes music, bursting through the TV screen as I'm like hacking at battle droids and facing General Grievous, and my mate shouting at me, because he's obviously playing as the droids, and it's just what a game, and I know. I think at the time of release they didn't really know about the real reason behind Order 66, and what the Clone Wars ultimately told us how it all happened and everything. But the actual story mode in that game is just absolutely brilliant. They've got Tamura Morrison, voicing the clones as part of the storyline. It's a fantastic story mode. The online, again, it was quite jittery online, but I did play it a few times, and I remember having such good fun on that. And I think the best thing of all was the Galactic Conquest mode, which you had to go around the galaxy and you had to conquer all of the planets, and you could do space battles. So you had to take out the capital ships, and you could fly into the capital ships. I mean, I could go on this, for a PS2 game, in 2005, the amount of things you could do in this game was mind-blowing. So I mean, it's such a good game. So yeah, number 3 for me was Battlefront 2. And I bought the re-release recently, because they re-released it and AI'd the graphics and everything. And I don't know if you played it, Matt, but
I haven't played the new. Oh, I saw it. I haven't gotten them yet.
Yeah, no, I picked them up, and because all I'd heard is negative. Oh, they're awful. They've ruined the games. But I wasn't bothered about playing them online. I just wanted to run around all those planets that I could remember, in my early 20s, and it was for that. It's absolutely worth the price. I heartily recommend anybody who hasn't bought the remastered versions to go out and do it. If you're interested in online, don't do it. But if you just want to have a laugh with your mates, co-op, because you can play co-op again. You can't do that in games anymore. And love this game so much. So yeah.
Yeah, I love the there was the Jedi Temple level in that game.
Oh, such a good level.
Running through the archives in that, and also the Mustafar level.
Oh, great level, yeah.
Because the detail they put into that one was incredible. I mean, they did it. I mean, LucasArts, like I said, the LucasArts Battlefront games are top notch. And I forgot they were out. Because I know they had a bad launch. It was a good one.
Yeah, it was good.
So you say that's co-op. Is that co-op story mode then? Or is it just sort of co-op?
Oh, you caught me out, Adam. I don't think it is, but I'm not going to say 100%. It could be. I'd have to, I'll write it in the description. I couldn't find out.
I feel like co-op story is something that is missing from a lot of games that could be, quite an integral part. But that's just my opinion. Matt, number 2.
Okay. So my number 2 is X-Wing Alliance, because I had to have a flight sim on here. I mean, I've 20 years in the Air Force and everything else. I just figured I had to have something flight related in here. Yeah. And like, for all the reasons that Martyn said before about this game was just, I mean, it was just incredible for its time. You got to fly a bunch of different ships. I love there was the YT-2000. It was basically like a Millennium Falcon type ship.
Yeah.
But configured a little differently. You can look it up online. It's kind of interesting looking, but it was a lot of fun to play. I mean, you had to, you sacrifice shields for speed. You can adjust this stuff in flight. I remember one where you're like flying a B-wing, and there's like, you have to take out these Star Destroyers that are on the other side of the map. And the best way to do it was you line up on them and just launch all your torpedoes at it right at the beginning. And then you fly out and engage the fighters while your torpedoes are just sailing out towards taking out the Star Destroyers. It was a really just interesting strategy. It was a lot of fun to play. And honestly, I need to get like a joystick for my PC and stuff and play that one again.
Yeah.
Because it's been a while, but I love that game. It had a great story to it, and it was just a lot of fun.
Sorry, Martyn, do you try and sort of do some nostalgic evenings and play those old games again, Matt, from time to time?
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, I do a lot. I mean, a lot of the stuff I'm playing right now, I'm playing through. I got Mass Effect Legendary Edition, really cheap on Steam, and I've never played any of the games on PC before. I always played them on Xbox, and so it was kind of fun to try to play them on PC, to see what it's like. But like I said, they just recently remastered Dark Forces, the original game, and I had some time. I bought it and sat down, and in the evenings after the kids had gone to bed and stuff like that. It's like usually one night a week where I stay up late playing games, and it's usually my Saturday night. But so that was a few Saturdays me going through that game again. It was a lot of fun. They are really good games. So
absolutely,
definitely.
What were you going to say, Martyn?
I just looked up, because it's been driving me mad what the name of the ship was from X-Wing Alliance. It was the Otana, and the character's name was Ace Azerman. It's just been driving me mad. I just had to get it. I just had to find out what it was. That's all. But yeah, it was. Adam, if you ever get like the chance, you can pick it up on Steam, I think, for £2 or $2.99 or something like that. Yeah,
it's pretty cheap on Steam.
It's well worth getting, and just play a level a night or something, because it really holds up in my eyes anyway. It should do anyway. But yeah, it's a great game.
Yeah, I can't say I've played that one, but my next one is a flight simulator type game. It's Rogue Squadron. So I remember having that on the N64. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, I mean, I've said before, like how the X-wings are probably one of my favourite parts of the Star Wars movies in general. So getting to go out and fly an X-wing, what more can you ask for?
Yeah, it's a
Absolutely
great
brilliant.
game.
Yeah, that one's a lot of fun.
It's quite groundbreaking, that game at the time as well, if I remember correctly. It was the first, I think, was it sorry, it was Shadows of the Empire was the first game you got to take down Imperial Walkers, but I think Rogue Squadron was the game that kind of perfected it in terms of gaming. Yes, it was a great game. I do remember playing. I never had an N64, but my friend did, and I only got to play it a couple of times, but it was a great game.
Yeah, it took a while for it to come out on PC, but that's where I played that one.
Oh yeah. Number two.
Martyn.
Number two for me. It's actually Rogue Squadron, but Rogue Squadron 2, Rogue Leader, which was on the GameCube, and it was one of the launching titles for the GameCube. And I don't know if you probably don't remember, but the marketing campaign for when the GameCube came out basically featured this game heavily, and everyone at the time, when they showed this game off, like that's not real. There's no way that the graphics could be that good for a Star Wars or for just a game in general. So I took the risk, got a GameCube, spent a month's wages on it, and got a GameCube, and played this game, and it lived up to every single bit of that marketing campaign. It was, for all the reasons that I listed about X-Wing Alliance, being able to do the attack on the Death Star as Lando Calrissian in the Millennium Falcon, and do the whole shtick at the beginning where the shield is still up, and then turning around and taking on all the TIE fighters, and then the Star Destroyers, and then heading down to the Death Star surface, and then going in through to the superstructure. All that was possible in this game, and it blew my mind, absolutely blew my mind. But before you even got to that level, you had to do pretty much everything from the Star Wars saga. You had the X-Wing attack on the first Death Star. You had the Battle of Hoth. You had some Bespin levels. You name it, it was in there. And and then it had some secret levels that if you could unlock, or if you turn the joystick a certain way, it would find these secret levels which you wouldn't have known about otherwise. Again, it was absolutely incredible for its time. I saw it recently because one of my friends had an emulator he had it on his HD TV screen, and it still holds up quite well, from a game that came out 2002, maybe one, I'm not sure. I absolutely adore this game, and I would certainly play it over and over again if I had it on a modern day console. Again, my wife has a Nintendo Switch, and for some bizarre reason, they've decided not to emulate any of the GameCube games, whereas they've done all of their other consoles on it. But they're basically been able to print money if they did that, because every Star Wars fan with a Switch would be buying all those games up. Because of course you could get the ones you were talking about earlier, Matt, the Jedi Academy.
Yeah, my kids have Commando and Racer on their Switches, and
so I mean, it's a license to print money if they brought those games out on the Switch. So I just hope one day that they decide to do it. So number 2, Rogue Squadron 2, Rogue Leader.
Well, it's funny you say that. Up in my loft or attic, I've still got my GameCube, and you just mentioning that promo video. I think I have that original GameCube VHS up in the loft as well.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and I remember that part of it quite well.
Yeah. It was a great console, the GameCube.
Yeah. Well, if we can get hold of a copy, then when you come down,
I've got it. I've got it.
Have you on the?
Yeah,
all right.
It's just difficult to put it onto the new TVs though. You need
the tellies,
special
course,
ports, because obviously there's no SCART plugs anymore. So you need a couple of different cables to get it working. So
yeah.
Should be easy to find that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get down to our number 1 then. Matt, shall we find out what your favorite Star Wars game is of all time?
Okay, I locked it away.
I'm feeling ours are going to be the same.
So I went with this game mainly because I played a lot of this game. This is probably the game I have played the most, and I actually didn't go with the original one. I went with the sequel, Knights of the Old Republic 2: The Sith Lords.
These Sith, they seek the death of all Jedi. We cannot hope to triumph against them alone. In the end, I fear it may not be enough.
You know not what path you walk, Jedi.
She is no Jedi. You felt it. She has lost herself.
In you, we saw a wound in the Force.
In you, we saw the end of the Force.
And now, they shall see what you have become.
The reason why is playing this game on PC. As much as I love the original Knights of the Old Republic, I think it's an absolutely perfect game. The sequel that came out, Obsidian Entertainment made it, and unfortunately, they pushed a release date that made that they had to cut a lot of the content out. There was like an extra planet. There was some parts of the story that they cut away from. There was because in the Sith Lords, like the people that you pick up on your crew, there's several of them that, and they never advertised this when the game came out, was that as long as you talk to them and everything and you take them to certain places, you can train them all as Jedi, with the exception of the droids. So, and I thought that was an amazing thing, you know, that they didn't really advertise it, but it was there. You really had to play the game to find it. And when the game first came out, it was good. But it was missing something. But these modders went in and found all they called it the Sith Lords restored content mod. Playing this game with that, I think, is honestly puts the game in for like the greatest game of all time. It is absolutely. I went through. I actually did on my channel a while back just for fun. I was actually just playing with video editing software and stuff to see what I could do with it. And I went through and I played the game from beginning to end. Wow. And with no commentary, it's just basically watching like this thing. This game is a movie, and honestly, I will replay this game forever. It is just that well done, and it is by far and away my number one.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, you'll have to send us that link so that I can put it in the description and also watch it myself.
No, sure. I'll start it off with the epilogue.
You've sold it to me.
I'll start off with the epilogue. You can. I have bought these two games. Knights of the Old Republic. I bought it. I bought them on Steam again for an updated thing. I bought them when they first came out. I bought them through the App Store for my iPad, kind of thing. Like any chance I get to play this game, I do it, and it's one of those I could replay it again 1,000 times, and I'm still just enjoying it. It really, the one thing that really bothers me is that they made the third game an MMO, and they should have had a proper third game like this. And, you know, they're talking about a remastered version of Knights of the Old Republic, so I'm hoping that they'll revisit it and do a proper third game.
Yeah. Hopefully that remake will do well enough that they'll see that it's wise to make a third game. But we'll hopefully, fingers crossed. I mean, Adam, number one for you.
So my number one, like I say, not played quite as many as you guys, but another one that I've got up in the attic. I've actually got the N64 limited edition Episode 1 pod racing game.
Nice.
Episode
1 racing.
That's a fun game.
And the whole, it came in the N64 or with the N64, not in it, but yes, and it's a really good fun game. I like racing games. It's, you know, I quite like casual games, I think is probably the best way to put it, and that's certainly one of them. I think you can tell by my list that it's all quite casual.
They're all fun games.
But yeah, really good fun game. And until you said about the Bombad racing game, I was thinking, is this the only other Star Wars racing game out there?
They brought a sequel out to Star Wars Racer.
did they?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, there's a second pod racing game, and there's also an arcade pod racing game. There's two versions
I
of it.
have
There's
played
one where
that.
it's just, have you played the one with the huge arms where you actually do the whole
Yeah.
pulling back for? Oh, so good.
Mhm.
Love that game.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's really good.
Yeah.
No,
So,
I
yeah.
remember playing that a lot, and it was a great game.
I put a lot of time into that because it was as it came with the console. It was probably the only game I had for quite a long time till I could afford to buy more. So yeah. Finally,
number one. Okay.
number one, man.
It will surprise nobody who's ever watched us on YouTube before, but Knights of the Old Republic. But the first game, I give a bit of backstory. It was about 3 or 4 years after the second game had come out that my housemate at the time said to me, knowing, we were basically everyone who lived in our house was a Star Wars nut. And he said, and he was a huge PC gamer. He was one of those people that would sit and play World of Warcraft all the time and, all those sort of games. And he said to me, have you ever played Knights of the Old Republic? And having played Knights of the Old Republic 2 on the Xbox and having never played that sort of game before, I was completely confused and didn't know what the hell was going on, because unless you played that sort of game before, it's quite tough to sort of get into. Would you agree, Matt? I mean, especially on the Xbox with a controller, I found it was quite... those sort of games are quite hard to...
it was tough to play on the Xbox. I played it on PC, and it was weird coming from the one thing I liked about it was turn-based combat. Both those games are turn-based combat, but it flows very quickly, so you can get through, so it's still kind of it's kind of got a first or third person shooter type feel.
Absolutely. I think it was my ignorance of, I put all the Star Wars games I'd put on previously, you just put up the menu, you press start, and you were just instantly fighting things, whereas this was a bit more in depth, and I hadn't played that sort of game before, so I played the second game on Xbox for about 10 minutes and just thought, no, it's not for me. So he gave me the PC version of the first game, and I said, oh, I don't know, mate. He said, honestly, try this. 2 weeks went by, and I finally left my room. I mean, I absolutely, I think I probably explored every inch of that game, and I got into the story so much, and without spoilers, because obviously there might be some people who have never played the game. I had no idea what was going to happen at the end, and to this day, it's one of the most mind-blowing moments in not just gaming history, but in my Star Wars history, or even history in watching entertainment. Still blows my mind what happened in that game, and it's one of the most amazing stories, if not the most amazing story in any game I've ever played, especially for its time. And I've played it, as Matt says, I've played it a couple of times on the PC since. I bought it on my iPad, so I could play it on my iPad, and it's sort of one of those things I'll go to when I've got a spare 10 minutes. I'll just boot it up quickly and spend 10 minutes on it, and it never gets boring. It's completely dated now when you play anything modern, but it doesn't matter. It feels like Star Wars, and it takes place 10,000 years or something before what we know as Star Wars, but it still feels like George Lucas wrote this and make this game.
The lore and everything in it. Why do you think Revan is so popular even now? I mean, this game is over 20 years old.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they're just, everybody still wants a the
right.
Revan figure for the vintage collection. I've got it right here, and it's amazing.
Absolutely. And why are they, why is there such a big furore about remaking this game? That the reason is because it's that good. Now I'm going to quickly interject the second game, because as soon as I'd finished this game, I walked into Stuart and I said, Stu, that was incredible. And he pulls out, oh yeah, I've got the second one here as well. So I instantly went straight into my room again.
See you in 2 weeks.
See you in 2 weeks. And I played that all the way through. And again, Matt is 100% right. Just because I've chosen the first game as my favourite, the second game is just as good. And I'd go as far as to say it's probably even deeper in terms of lore than the first game, massively so. It's got some really interesting characters that weren't in the first game. Obviously no one who's in the first game is in the second game, but it's the characters in general are much more. There's more depth to them. They're more interesting, and the storyline is probably better. And I'm really interested to play. I've heard of this. Them
The
founding all
restored
of
content mod.
I've
Makes
never
this
played
game.
it.
It takes it up another whole nother level. It is
I'm gonna have
amazing.
to play it. I'm gonna have to play it. In fact, as soon as we finish this, I'm gonna download it on Steam. God, I was going to go on the list, but I'm going to download it.
It's very easy to add the mods to it too.
Yeah, because Steph bought a Switch, and obviously they've just released Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2 on that, but they apparently said that they're not going to release the extended content for the second game, so that's kind of put me off playing it on that. So I'll play it on the PC, but yeah, I mean, because I picked that first one, I just want to make everyone aware that the second game is just as good. It's what a series, and Matt's 100% correct. They should have made a third game. It was crying out for a trilogy of games, and they could have linked them all together somehow. And yeah, I mean, I can't say any more than that. I've waxed lyrical about this game so many times on videos that we've done where we're not even talking about games. so comes as no surprise. But if you haven't played it, don't read up about it. Just play it. And
I will. I will at some point.
Sort of finish the story a bit in a novel.
Oh right, I didn't know.
Yeah, but but it was a lead-in for it came out just before the Old Republic.
Okay.
So it's so it kind of leads into the MMO, but yeah, it's just like this story is screaming for a third game to finish the story.
Absolutely. And just a quick thing, having played the MMO, it's quite interesting to note that when it first came out, it did really well, and then it had a massive drop off, and they had to make it free to play. And then all of a sudden, they released a Revan expansion pack to the MMO, and all of a sudden, the player base went astronomical. And so that is pretty much a good sign of how good the original games are, because as soon as they did that, everyone was back on board with the online game. So yeah, I mean, Adam said he's going to wait for the remaster, I think, didn't you say, Adam? But if you, I know it's difficult at the moment, but in a few years' time, if you can get your laptop out and just sit at the table for an hour an evening or once a weekend or something, just play this game. It's so good, so good.
Yeah, there were several times where I'd start playing it in the evening. This is when I was single. And it was like, all of us, I'm playing the game, and I'm like, and I should probably go to bed. And I look, and the sun's coming up, and I'm like, oh, no, never mind.
Yep,
too late.
And you can get into this game, and there's so much depth in these games, and just to go around and exploring is just amazing.
Yeah, just to sorry, I'm waxing lyrical massively now, but just one of the things is, you don't start with a lightsaber. You can have a vibroblade, or which is something that obviously you've seen in The Mandalorian now, or you can have a blaster, and you can get a lightsaber in the game. But it's not just you don't finish go along a linear path in the game, do you, Matt? You've got to choose the way you want to go about the game. You can go to wherever you want to go. So you could end up quite far into the game until you actually get a lightsaber, or purely by luck, you could do what you need to do, and all of a sudden you've got a lightsaber. So it's playable many times because it's different. The story remains the same, but the way you play it changes massively. So
even still, the ending for Knights of the Old Republic, it can have massively different endings to it, because depending on your choices in the game.
Absolutely. Yep. Again, and that was quite a foresight from them, because that's in all games now, isn't it? Especially Star Wars games, dark
they're
path,
really gone.
light path, it's anyway, you better shut me up, Adam, because I'll keep
well, we're getting to an hour now, getting towards an hour, so we better call it there. But Matt, that's been a lot of fun. Where can people find your content?
You can find Matt's collection here on YouTube. I also have Instagram. Stu always uses my Instagram name with these trivia contests. He calls me the Collection of Matt because I couldn't put Matt's collection in there. But there, I'm also on Twitter or X, whatever, as Matt's Collection. So it's that's more fun. I think for me, like I just put random. It is probably the most random thing on Twitter right now is my Twitter channel. But like I said, I have like a complete playthrough of the restored content mod, and there was another one that adds this robot planet. And I'll send you the link for that if you want to put it in here. But it's if you want to see through it, and those are the only games that I really had to fight copyright on. Some random guy was trying to get them all taken down for copyright. I was like, 2 people have watched this. It's like I do a lot of stuff. I really do it for me. I don't know if anybody ever watches any of my stuff, but just do it for fun.
Yeah,
that's what it's all about.
We also obviously do Talking Star Wars, where we talk about films, TV shows, and a collection. Will you come back and talk to us for that?
Absolutely, anytime, guys. This has been a lot of fun.
Come back again. Good, awesome
stuff. Thank you,
stuff,
Matt.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Make sure you follow Matt, subscribe to us, and like this video if you enjoyed it. Otherwise, we'll catch you in the next one. Cheers. Bye.